I think in my work, it's always a celebration of the conflict. Because through the conflict, I terrorize my own brain to think in a different way. To share with people together a real-time experience in 24 hours, it becomes something very spiritual in these days.
Because it lasts so long, because it's like 24 hours, perhaps we get much closer to the original performance of Greek tragedy, which started, of course, on sunrise and ended with sundown during the Dionysiac festivals.
We don't tell the stories, but when you read the things here, let us say, in all the monologues and duets, everything essential from the story is inside.
These texts have to be, you have to understand them on a very basic level. So that's very important. A basic level, and also we start from like this tabula rasa with the audience. So it is, at this point, it's not relevant whether you know Medea or whether you know Oedipus or characters like that. It's not important.
And the more you eat the material, the better you can vomit it out.
And it's so different for me, you know, coming from a classical background with a story that starts and ends with characters, you know. And here you go in its creation. And Jan gives you input and he brings you somewhere where you don't know you can go there.
It's like everything he asks is impossible, and that's why it's also funny. You try to adapt, you have to make the best of it, and that's also the attractive part of it. Sucks you in this working process. Voilà.
We're now in a country where nobody has been before. We're colonizing our own imagination.
I do a lot of improvisations for different reasons. But to say 9 out of 10 improvisations I will never use on stage, or some details. But it's a way that I make the company think in a physical way. They create a kind of almost a kind of deep memory in their body, an intellectual and spiritual memory about the topics.
You could almost say that, of course, there's still some psychology in the text, but the performers almost literally sweat the psychology out of their bodies on stage. When you have an audience that you put them outside of the busy time of the 21st century, you put them inside a room where they can see bodies moving, bodies talking, and you see these ghosts from the Greek tragedies. If you put that all together, you have not a theater play, but you have a ritual.
And then when we take a cigarette, to smoke a cigarette, the complete audience goes like, ah. You see, then you reach a very deep physical and mental catharsis. You share something so deep that you can only, let's say, describe in the periphery with words. You can only describe it in the periphery with words. But this act of that the public feels the same almost what's happening on stage, or have the same release or the same necessity from the cigarette now. It's so beautiful.
I think the catharsis has something to do with time, with the development of time, with spending so much time in the same place with people, not locked up. It's like the French say, a va-et-vient. You can come, you can relax, go outside, come back, see a performance piece for hours on end, and then go and have a meal and come back. You can all do that. So actually what we're doing is, I think we're almost recreating a Dionysiac festival for the 21st century.
Everything is so important, every details. The spacing, also the sound spacing. The way he wants some sound coming from far, some sound coming. He uses the volume from the space.
I work sometimes with this really very cheap, the cheapest guitars or small string instruments possible. String instruments that are not even, they can't be tuned properly. So there's always a little out of tune. And when it's a little out of tune, it sounds human. And when it sounds human and you play calm, it feels so, it touches you.
The particular moments where you no longer can depend on your ratio, on your sense of logic, because you're falling asleep. And perhaps you start to dream. You start to look, you're still looking at what happens on stage, but perhaps you're already dreaming. And you're slipping into a dream, and perhaps you fall asleep. This, for me, I think it's the underworld.